I'm very happy that Professor PLO Lumumba is here with us today. His name is synonymous with good governance and Pan-Africanism. I wish there were several Professor Lumumbas in every country on our continent, because he stands as one of Africa's most eloquent and fearless voices for Pan-Africanism, democracy, and good governance. Through his unwavering commitment to the unity, dignity, and self-determination of the African continent, he has inspired generations to believe in an Africa that is led by integrity, guided by justice, and powered by its own people. His bold advocacy and for accountable leadership and his tireless fight against corruption have earned him the respect and admiration of millions across borders. Professor Lumumba's vision reminds us that Africa's renaissance is not a distant dream, but a responsibility that calls upon every African to act with courage, wisdom, and purpose. You, Professor, are one of Africa's jewels. Thank you very much for the work that you do.
Yes, that is the former president of Botswana and the son of founding father of Botswana, Khama. So, brothers and sisters, in this video, we are going to hear both Professor PLO Lumumba as well as President Ian Khama. All of them spoken about Pan-Africanism. Former president of Botswana was invited at Lukenya University to speak about Pan-Africanism and governance in the continent. So here we are going to start with Professor PLO Lumumba. Then after Professor, we'll hear a speech from Ian Khama, the former president of Botswana. Don't skip the video, watch it from the beginning till the end. Here is the full speeches of both leaders.
Let me start by recognizing the chief guest, the former president of the Republic of Botswana, and my very good friend, Dr. Ian Khama. Permit me also to recognize my friend, the former Vice President of the Republic of Kenya, the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, to recognize the Governor of my Kweni, Mutula Kilonzo Jr., Mama Mulwa, the Chair of the Trustees of Lukenya University, the Chair of the Council, the Vice Chancellor of the University, the Chancellor of the University, the Pro-Chancellor, my good friend Dr. Heda, the academic staff, and permit me also to recognize some of my friends who have traveled far and wide to be present here. Madam Senait Dimitri, who is a big business person in Ethiopia, has traveled to be with us here. My good friend Nurdin Kajuma from the United Republic of Tanzania. And of course, Lat Maker from the Republic of South Sudan. I believe Dr. Wanji Kundungu is also here, one of the major proprietors, and Ray Nyamwea. Your Excellency, exactly 2 years ago, we were present here with my good friend Julius Selo Malema to institute the Pan-African Institute. And perhaps wisdom demands that the historical context is established. The historical context is that our foundation, the PLO Lumumba Foundation, was debating where to establish the Pan-African Institute, present as we are today in 50 African countries. We had a conversation with Lukenya University and agreed that the Mother Institute be established here. And I can confirm that 2 years later, we are spreading our tentacles. On the 7th day of October this year, we established a child of this institute at the university in Hargeisa, the Unity University. Your Excellency, I will also confirm that on the 15th day of November, we will be establishing the 3rd institute in Lusaka, Zambia. I can also confirm that during that period, we have entered into a memorandum of understanding to establish an institute in Trinidad and Tobago at the University of West Indies. And that next year, we'll also be establishing this institute in Monrovia in Liberia. And we say all these because we recognize that over the years, Pan-Africanism has been romanticized. One may say that Pan-Africanism had been reduced to sloganeering, but we refuse to believe that the purport and import of Pan-Africanism was merely to sloganeer. And that is why we strive to give content to Pan-Africanism. Your Excellency will want to know that under the aegis of this institute, we are touching young people in the continent of Africa. In Kumasi in Ghana, early this year, we established at Obuasi High School an innovation and invention center. And next year, we'll be showcasing some of the things that young Africans are doing. This very same year, in Monrovia, we have established a Pan-African clothing line. And on Saturday, I will be in Lusaka, Zambia, to establish the Pan-African Media House at Eden University. I also want to make known that in the manner that my good friend Kiprono Kitony and Robert Nyasimia said, we hold the view that Pan-Africanism must not be confined in the arena of politicking without more. We believe, as my good friend Selo Malema said, that economic liberation is indeed the true liberation. And that is why, therefore, we are engaged specifically with the ladies and gentlemen that I've invited here. We will very shortly, in the first quarter of the year 2026, be establishing jointly with Nurdin Kajuma a program for feeding Africa, and the tag name is, Have You Eaten Today? We are giving meaning to agriculture in Africa, and we are honoring one of the greatest Pan-Africanist contemporary, Edwina Flatten Taylor, who died about 2 weeks ago. And already we are present in 6 African countries on the basis of organic farming. With my good friend Dimitri, who is a big business person in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, we are going into the spaces of empowering young men and women. So we come here, Your Excellency, not only to commemorate and celebrate, but also to announce that we are giving meaning and content to what was said by the pioneers. Just this morning, as we were flying in here, I remembered some of the most iconic speeches that were delivered in 1963 when the Organization of African Unity was founded. And I remember these words of Emperor Haile Selassie when he reminded his audience that Africa was not created later than other continents. He reminded his audience that Africa was created at the same time as other continents, but that we have been engaged in lamentation for too long, that we have handicapped ourselves for too long, and the time is now for us to begin to lift ourselves by our bootstraps. Your Excellency, we are here to do exactly that. And that is why it was not a difficult task to invite you, having had occasion to be with you in a number of Pan-African forums. It is also important to note that we had invited the former Vice President of Liberia, the Honorable Jewel Taylor, but she could not make it. She recorded our message, but technology has conspired against us, and therefore it will be communicated online. Your Excellency, on occasions such as these, wisdom not only requires but demands that we do not speak for too long. It requires that we only remind ourselves that we are on to a big thing. For the young people who are present here, it is your duty to carry this baton forward in the knowledge that throughout the ages, the continent of Africa has been undermined. In fact, if my Kamba does not let me down, the very place at which we are, Mtito Ande, means the forest of vultures. And this is a place where during slavery, the bodies of Africans were eaten by vultures, hence the name. We can no longer afford that luxury. Our duty, therefore, you who are young, is to go down in history, because if you do not have a sense of history, you cannot have a sense of the future. If you look at the young men and women who are the purveyors of Pan-Africanism, they were young. Nkrumah was young. Lumumba was young. Mboya was young. Nyerere was young. Samora was young. Saserese Khama was young. Biko was young. Amilcar Cabral was young. Ahmed Ben Bella was young. Tiro Ngopote was young. Kaunda was young. It is in your youth that you must carry this baton in the knowledge that Africa can only be catapulted into the orbit of sustainable development if our young men and women are in the forefront. And I pray and hope that beyond today's celebration, marked with pomp and circumstance, you will, each one of you, do that which is good and right. Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere, addressing young people such as yourselves in 1967, said in Kiswahili, and permit me to quote, "Siri ya maendeleo ni vijana wenye malezi bora, siha njema na bongo kali." Nina hakika mna siha njema, mna malezi bora, na mna bongo kali. Ladies and gentlemen, I said wisdom requires only one thing: not speak for too long. I now conclude my remarks, and in so doing invite my good friend Sylvia Kasanga Mulua to lead us into the next segment of this engagement. God bless you all. That played before Afrique le Bougeron by Franklin Bukaka. This morning, as we traveled from Nairobi, Your Excellency, you remember, we agonized about the continent, agonized about what is happening in Sudan, Cameroon, the Democratic Republic of Congo, what happened in Tanzania, what happens in Tigray, what is happening in Central African Republic, what is happening as at this morning in Bamako, in Mali. But we said we will not allow our spirits to be dampened. We remembered how during your term, you stood firm against forces that desired to torpedo the good things that had been achieved. This morning, you broke the ground for the Pan-African Institute. You traveled far and wide in order to be present with us this morning. It is in recognition of that that the Lukenya University and the Pan-African Institute has seen it fit to recognize your efforts over the years, because those who serve well ought to be celebrated. We here are celebrating you, Your Excellency. The process now begins to do it the necessary pomp and circumstance.
Coming to the spirit of Pan-Africanism, it was born from struggle, from the determination of our forebearers who refused to be defined by colonialism, division, or despair. It is a philosophy rooted in the belief that Africa must speak with one voice, act with one purpose, and stand on its own feet. From the vision of Nkrumah, to the wisdom of Julius Nyerere, to the courage of Nelson Mandela and the foresight of my own father, President Khama, we have inherited a rich legacy of unity and service. But this legacy is not a monument to admire. It is a mission to continue. Speaking of governance, the backbone of progress, governance is the foundation upon which Pan-Africanism must stand. Without good governance, unity becomes fragile and development unsustainable. True governance is not about authority. It is about accountability. It is not about control. It is about caring. It is the art of managing the affairs of a nation with transparency, fairness, and compassion. Africa does not lack ideas, nor do we lack resources. What we sometimes lack is integrity and courage in leadership. The Africa we dream of, peaceful, prosperous, and respected, will only emerge when our governance is guided by our values and not by our interests. Turning to recent examples, it is totally unacceptable. It is totally unacceptable when an Africa leader, in order to stay in power, will resort to killing his or her own people. In order to stay in power, will rig an election, as if they are God's gift to their country. When you have a country with millions of people, for any leader to think they are the only ones who can be president is pathetic. And therefore, and my apology to those who may come from Tanzania, but I'm mentioning this because they are your neighbor, that the recent election and what transpired, the killings around that election, I, for one, do not recognize the person who was inaugurated as the President of Tanzania. She is an illegitimate president. But the sad story does not stop there. The sad story does not stop there. Recently, we saw another inauguration of a 90-something-year-old president in Cameroon. 90-something years old, who can hardly walk, but still wants to be president. We have seen in countries like Ivory Coast, and they're not the only ones, where when an opposition leader shows that they are going to be able to put up a credible challenge against an incumbent, suddenly they are charged with some crime or the other. Their parties are banned for one reason or the other, just so that an incumbent can remain in power. That is not the Africa that we want. We have a protocol in the Southern African Development Community, SADC, which is our regional body, a protocol for the conduct of free and fair elections, which is violated by a number of countries in SADC. So when Tanzania violated the protocol, I thought, no, we will turn to the SADC chairperson to come and rescue the situation. But what happened? The chairperson of SADC, who was the president of Madagascar, had run away from his own country. And he ran away with the chairmanship. That is how ridiculous the situation we find ourselves in today. And as we heard, with wars going on in Sudan, one of the worst conflicts in the world currently, in the DRC, we have military governments, and we have these geriatrics trying to be life presidents. And there are many more countries I haven't mentioned. It is setting a bad example for those young people who aspire to be our leaders in the future. So maybe taking your idea about how you lease vehicles to the government of Kenya, maybe people should be leased to become presidents. And when we see they are failing, we cancel the lease and put in someone and lease somebody else. We must therefore nurture a culture of ethics in public service, where leadership is measured not by how much one gains, but how much one can give. And to the youth of Africa, as I look across this audience today, I see the future. Young men, young women whose energy and creativity, which we have even experienced today on this stage, will shape the destiny of this continent. You are the generation that must take Pan-Africanism beyond rhetoric and make it a lived reality. In your hands lies the power to dismantle poverty, to dismantle corruption and inequality. In your minds lies the innovation that will build industries, create jobs, and restore dignity to African labor. In your hearts lies the compassion to heal divisions and bring hope where there has been despair. I urge you, do not wait for permission to lead. Do not wait for permission to lead. It is your right. The future of Africa will not be determined by those who doubt her. It will be built by those who believe in her potential and act with courage. With unity in diversity, our strength lies in that diversity. Africa is home to over 1.4 billion people speaking more than 2,000 languages. Yet beneath that diversity lies one heartbeat, which is the African spirit. We must move beyond borders, both physical and mental, and see ourselves as one people with a shared destiny. When Africans unite in purpose, we will be unstoppable. Let us trade more with each other, learn more from each other, and support each other. Let us make the African Continental Free Trade Area not just a treaty on paper, but a reality in practice, a bridge that connects our markets, our cultures, and our dreams. And therefore, for sustainable development and stewardship, as Africans, we are blessed with abundant natural wealth, from minerals and forests to wildlife and fertile lands. But these gifts come with responsibility. Sustainable development means protecting our environment while empowering our people. It means creating economies that serve humanity. It means also not the other way around, recognizing that the true wealth of Africa is not in her resources, and like we have heard already, but it is in her people, their creativity, their resilience, and their hope. As we build cities, industries, and technologies, let us also build compassion. Let our progress not come at the expense of the vulnerable or the voiceless. So the vision for the future, I envision an Africa where every child has access to education, every family to clean water, and every young person to opportunity. An Africa where women are empowered, not marginalized, where peace is not the exception, but the norm. An Africa that speaks with confidence on the world stage, not as a recipient of aid, but as a partner in progress. That future is within our grasp, but it demands courage, the courage to think differently, to act boldly, and to serve selflessly. In closing, as I accept this honorary degree today, I do so not as a personal achievement, but as a reaffirmation of our shared belief that service to humanity is the highest calling for all. May we continue to draw strength from our heritage, wisdom from our elders, and inspiration from our youth. And may the spirit of governance and Pan-Africanism continue to light our path towards unity, justice, and sustainable development for generations to come. I thank you, the Kenya University, for this honor. May God bless you all, and may God bless Africa, and thank you for your attention.
Wow, welcome back, brothers and sisters. You heard a lot from both President Ian Khama, former president of Botswana, as well as from Professor PLO Lumumba, who is also a member of Pan-African at Kenya University. So the good thing that now I see from leaders, especially former leaders, they have started to recognize Professor PLO Lumumba. Even if they didn't understand before that maybe Lumumba was speaking to liberate this continent economically, now they have started to see that there's a need for them to listen to Professor PLO Lumumba. I remember some countries restricted and chosen of course, restricted and denied Professor PLO Lumumba. For instance, you remember what happened to Zambia under the leadership of Edgar Lungu. Said Professor is talking about China, he's going to expel investors, is going to talk badly about investors. Due to security issues, Professor was denied to enter in Lusaka, Zambia. But at the end of the day, right now you see Africans, especially leaders, have started to recognize what Professor is fighting for. Professor is not fighting with the government. He's talking about good governance. So sometimes we feel that Professor maybe is citing someone, is talking to someone, maybe is criticizing someone. No, Professor is speaking his views, constructive views. So those who are in power, sometimes they feel that maybe they have been touched. But all in all, Professor is awakening Africans. So I wish this should go beyond. As you heard, Professor has spoken about going to Burkina Faso, going to Liberia, going to Caribbean. But we want one thing as Africans. Let us convene a special Pan-African meeting. Of course, we have several, but let us convene a special Pan-African meeting where former leaders, I mean former presidents, will be invited. They have experiences, they know what is going on to their countries, they have stayed in state house, they know external power, the way they influence Africa, Pan-Africanists like Professor PLO Lumumba and others, and other stakeholders on the issue of unity of this continent. If we can have such kind of meeting, I hope we can have a collective ideas on how we can liberate this continent economically. But all in all, we have seen African Union CARICOM summit. We didn't see the output. Leaders sat down in Addis, they spoken, they discussed, but those things remains to their hands. It's good because if you expose them to others, it means others will understand what we have been talking about. But I fear even within ourselves we have people who are working for the Western agencies. So to hide those information to Africans while we know others are exposing us, it is not better. We have to have a common understanding that we have discussed about unity. Let us come out and speak that. We have discussed about unity, integration, working together. Maybe strategies must remain separate, how we are going to unite, how we are going to trade among ourselves, how are we going to do business. Maybe that all those things will remain under secret. But you have to tell the people the hope that leaders gathered together, came together, spoken about unity. Now we hope we are going to have a united Africa. The thing that Africans are waiting is to see one day leaders coming together and say, from now and then, we are going to work together as a bloc, as a continent, not as individual countries. Right now, you see what is happening to several African countries. You heard Ian Khama has explained, Professor Lumumba has explained. You see, almost every angle in this continent, there's trouble, there's conflict. But who can resolve these conflicts? Who can solve these challenges? It's we Africans. So, brothers and sisters, the only salvation and solution for us to solve these challenges is to come together. You know, look what is happening, for instance, in Nigeria. There's bandits, Boko Haram there, fighting. When they do something bad, they learn it to other countries. The same to Sahel. When they do something in Burkina Faso, they learn to Cote d'Ivoire. When they do things in Mali, they learn to Algeria. So if we are united, Algeria can collaborate with Mali, Mali can work together with Burkina Faso can work with Cote d'Ivoire. But right now you can find that Burkina Faso is fighting to restore peace, but in the neighboring country, Cote d'Ivoire, is being used by imperialists and other people to destabilize the country that is fighting for peace. You can see how difficult it is. Right now, we are talking about Sudan. We are talking about peace in the continent of Africa, but brothers against brothers are fighting in Sudan, in South Sudan, in Democratic Republic of Congo. How can we solve those challenges? But if we are united, it will be easy. We will fight as Africans. We will say this must come to an end. But now it is difficult because of division. And you saw Trump threatened Nigeria. It can, of course, it's because of disunity. Someone can come and say, I can beat you at any time T. I can invade you at any time T. And you have nothing to do because you don't have power. You are weak. So I think, brothers and sisters, let us come together and unite. Those are just my views from what I heard from Professor PLO Lumumba. But let us, all of us, embrace Pan-African in our countries, in our continent, and in our daily life. Let us love each other. Let us preach peace, and let us talk about unity. Because without all those three things, the development that we desire will not come true. So Abdat, have no more to share. I'm waiting to hear from you. What is your perspective? What is your views? What is your thought from what you heard from Professor Lumumba as well as from former President of Botswana, Ian Khama? Thank you.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa.